Alright guys, so today we're going to talk about fresh water and how it supports human activity. First, we're going to look at three pie charts. So remember, a pie chart is a really good graph to represent data in percentages out of 100. So these pie charts are looking at the global use of water across income groups. So we have one pie chart that represents the world and how the world uses their water. One pie chart that looks at low and middle income countries and how they're using their water. And one pie chart that looks at high income countries and how they use their water. So take a moment, really analyze this data, and see if you can make some sense of it. So when I'm looking at this pie chart, I'm looking at my low and middle income countries and comparing it to my high income countries. So I want to really look at that first. And when I compare them, I'm noticing that for low and middle income countries, they're going to be using most of their water, it looks like, for agriculture, so farming. Whereas a high income country is using most of their water for industry, so manufacturing goods or services. So in your notes, take a moment, see if you can write down why you think there's a difference in how they're using their water. So why is low income countries using most of their water for agriculture, where in a high income country, they're going to use most of their water for industry? Now, if I look at my world pie chart, the world uses most of their water for agriculture, so growing crops and helping with livestock. Then they're going to use their water like for industry, and then the last amount is for domestic use, and that's about the same for all of them, between 8 and 11%. And domestic use just is how you use water at home, like brushing your teeth, watering your lawn, or taking a bath. So we're really going to look at what agriculture, industry, and domestic use of water is. Agricultural use. So about 70% of the world's fresh water supply is used for agriculture. So this includes caring for your animals and irrigating crops. So caring for our animals is making sure that our animals have enough water to survive. Your cow that you eat for your cheeseburgers, that cow needed to be like given water so it didn't like die of dehydration. So throughout its life, it was getting water. So those are some things to think about. So even though you're eating this burger, it came from a cow, and that cow still needed water. So you still need to include that water in your amount of water use. And then irrigating crops is just watering our crops. So we have two images here. One on the left is probably what you're more used to seeing. So if we drove out into the country, you might see this example where the crops are all in lines, and there's like what looks like giant sprinklers. And basically, those sprinklers are hooked up to hoses and piping that access the water that is in the area. And then the one on the right, we might not see as much. This farmer has to dig a canal that is very close to the river, so his farm is probably right on the river. He dug a nice little canal that goes to his crops and then put lines through those crops so that the water could go through them and water his crops that way. So one makes it like the one on the left that we're used to seeing is easy to control. We can turn off and on when we're going to use that water to water our plants. The one on the right, not so much. You would probably have to block it off with sandbags or dirt or rocks or something if you wanted to stop the flow of water. But the one on the right means if that's the only way he has access to water, means that he's going to have to be very, very close to the water source. So what is irrigation? Irrigation is just a controlled amount of water to plants at needed intervals, so it allows farmers to have a more reliable and plentiful crop. So it's really important for farmers to be able to grow their crops and make sure they don't die, because that's how they make their livelihood and that's how we get our food that we eat today. So just making sure that they have enough water and can give their water to their crops whenever they need, so that there's a lot of them for them to sell and for us to eat. Industry. So about 22% of the Earth's fresh water is used to provide us with many manufactured goods like paper, the one that you're writing on right now, industrial products like the clothes you're wearing or the cars that are being driven, extracting minerals and cooling the power stations, like the thermal electric generators and anything that's like a power source. So industry is basically just making sure that those everyday things that we're accustomed to using, like taking our bus to like school, driving our cars, writing on that paper, wearing the cool clothes that you wear today, that's all industry. So just using like power plants and like manufacturing plants to provide goods and services. So two ways that we can actually use industry to make electricity are these. One example of power generation is hydroelectric power. Remember, hydro is kind of related to water. So hydroelectric means electricity from water. These plants are using kinetic energy from flowing water. So kinetic energy is energy in motion. And when water is flowing like a river that flows, they can capture that energy to turn a turbine. And the turbine kind of looks like a fan with cups. Those cups capture the flowing water, and that flowing water spins the cups around like a fan. And that fan creates energy, and we can take that energy and convert it into electricity. So this is a really nice renewable resource, so something we can have access to for as long as the river is flowing. The second one is steam turbines. So this is not as clean. We need coal to be able to heat up the water. And when the water is heated up, it's going to create steam. So water in a gas state, and that steam rises. And as it rises, it's going to spin a turbine. And like the hydroelectric one, once that turbine is spinning, it creates energy, and that energy can then be converted into electricity. So domestic use. About 8% of the world's fresh water is used for domestic things that like cooking, doing your dishes, doing laundry, swimming and fishing, so recreational things, flushing your toilet, brushing your teeth, taking a shower or bath, and just drinking water in general. So it's really important to remember, though, that 1% of the world's fresh water is readily available for human consumption. So that 1% out of all the water that's in the world is used for both for not just both, but all of the things that we just talked about. So agriculture, using it for farming, using it for manufacturing our goods, and even just drinking that water. So in your notes and for your homework, you need to write a couple sentences on whether you think we're using that resource wisely. And if we aren't, what are some good ways that we can use it more wisely? And then we'll have a nice debate about it in class tomorrow.